Can MaloMyotismon make a return and become meta in BT8? Let's talk about it. What's up, Tamers? Welcome back to The Other Decks. My name's Casual Dobo, and today we're talking about my boy MaloMyotismon. So for those of you who don't know, mostly because I never did a deck profile on it, MaloMyotismon back in like the 1.5 meta was actually one of my first solo color decks. Yes, I did build that abomination of black-green Digisorption reboot as my first deck, but then once I looked at all the cards, I was like, you know what, I want MaloMyotismon to be mine. And so when I heard that in BT8 MaloMyotismon was coming back, I was like, yes, let's get it. And as I was building this, I actually was debating between two different kinds. The one that I'm going to present to you today, but also an Oops All MaloMyotismon deck, which I think later on as we get into BTA and kind of actually get into it, because I'm a North American player, we don't have it yet, but once we get into it, I'm probably going to make another deck profile showcasing that one, because I think that one is really fun. But this one I personally feel is the better version of the two. And this BTA MaloMyotismon is something insane. It has a when Digivolving ability, but the main one you're looking for is its on play that essentially allows you to trump sword something while also removing some the top card from your opponent's security if the conditions are met. And we have plenty of ways to meet those conditions, so I'm pretty excited to show this to you and see what you think. And as I'm going through it, let me know in the comments below what you're thinking about the deck profile, and what do you think about MaloMyotismon in general. I know he was the big bad of Adventure 02, and so do you think the cards do him justice? And while you're down there, if you are enjoying the content, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Every single interaction helps grow this channel just a bit and a bit more, and we've recently just passed 600 subscribers, which is absolutely insane. So thank you to everyone who has subscribed. But that is enough from me, so without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the deck profile. Alright, and here we are at the deck profile, and like with all deck profiles we do on this channel, we're going to start off with our Digitama. So first up, we have 4 copies of Demi-Meramon. This has the on deletion trigger draw 1 trash 1. If you've played against any purple deck, you've most likely seen it. This is just a very solid one to have. Now, in this particular meta in BT8, things seem to go fast, so you really don't need 5 Digi-Eggs, but I do have a 5th one in Tsunomon. Your turn, once per turn, when you trash a card in your hand using one of your effects, trigger draw 1. We're primarily using this in conjunction with the Gabumon, and we also run the Eismon package in here, the 4 scatter modes. Not the actual Eismon itself, but we'll get to the champions in a bit. Moving on to the rookies, we do have 4 copies of Gabumon. So this one has the on deletion trigger draw 2 trash 1. So real quick, for those of you who don't know, the whole purpose of this deck is to fill up your trash with things with Myotismon in their name, so that you can use your tamer, Yukio, in order to play a MaloMyotismon essentially for free. Now this is a bit of a slower deck, I'd say sort of a more mid to long range deck, but if you can set up your trash in time and then start using some of that recursion, you'll be in a pretty good spot. And so Gabumon really helps us in that regard. And in particular, this Gabumon being an on deletion is pretty good for us just because we're expecting a lot of our things, especially at the ultimate level, once we get into our Myotismons, we're kind of expecting them to die, so on deletion, perfect for our strategy. Next up, we do have 2 copies of Gazimon. This is old familiar face. All turns, your opponent can't gain any memory except from tamer effects. So it shuts down a lot of those pesky blue cards like Hammer Spark. It can prevent memory boost from going off. Gazimon, if you've been playing the game for any length of time for the last couple sets, you know how important Gazimon is. Next up, 2 copies of Lopmon. So on your turn, once per turn, when you play a tamer, gain 1 memory. And the reason I include this here is because a couple of our Myotismons do have the ability to play Yukio from either trash or hand, and so combining it with this is a pretty good small combo to have in the deck. Up next, we do have 2 copies of the new Devimon. So this says on play, reveal top 3 of your deck, then you can add a tamer card from among them to your hand, then trash a purple Digimon card from among them, then place the remaining at the bottom of your deck. So in an ideal world, you're going to be able to get your Yukio from this, or even your Matashita, because we are playing multiple tamers, and then also be able to trash a Myotismon from that list, and then whatever the third card is, you just bottom deck it. Now, having played this a couple times, more likely you're going to bottom deck two things and just be able to trash a Digimon card, but you know, this whole entire engine runs on Yukio, and so finding that as quickly as possible is worth anything that you might, you know, accidentally bottom deck. But we play 2 copies of that, and then rounding out our rookies, I do play 3 copies of the EX01 Digimon. So this one has Retaliation, and then on your turn, while you don't have a Digimon with Myotismon in its name, you can't attack your opponent's Digimon. But luckily, we have a lot of things with Myotismon. And as a quick spoiler alert, I do play this because I actually play Venom Myotismon as my secondary Mega. Moving on to the champions, I got 3 copies of Devimon. This is the one that has Retaliation as an active ability, as well as Retaliation as an inheritable. I think in this particular build, this is a very solid Digimon because it can be returned using Venom Myotismon's ability, and it gives all of our future Digimon that are stacked on top of it Retaliation. So if we are, you know, facing off against a very quick Imperial Dramon, something that gets out a level, you know, a big level 5 or 6 pretty early in the game, we can put down Devimon, maybe, if we're lucky, Digivolve into one of the MyotisMons, and then it'll have Retaliation, swing into that big thing, you know, tap your Yukio. There's a couple of different things that, if presented with the right situation, Retaliation as an inheritable is perfect for. Plus, with the Venom MyotisMon, if it can bring it back, that does give us a little bit more Digivolution fodder, and we do want to get, you know, our ultimates out as quickly as possible. So, 3 copies of Devimon. Next up, we've got 4 copies of Scatter Mode. This is on deletion, draw 3, trash 2. So, like the inheritable for Gabumon, like the Demi-Meramon inheritable, this is just really good for being able to go through our deck and also control what goes into our trash. And before anyone asks, no, it is not a mistake. I do not play any of the Eismon, just because Eismon being limited to 1, I didn't think it was wholly necessary, so keeping this one regular Eismon free. Next up, we do got 2 copies of Loimon. This can essentially Digivolve off of a tamer for 2. Really using it mostly for some of those final swings, and if necessary, Digivolving into a raising area. And then last up on the champions, and maybe a little bit of a surprise card, we do have 2 copies of Witchmon from the starter deck. So this is a security Digimon that says at the end of the battle, play this card without paying the memory cost, which is cool because its on play ability is return 1 purple level 5 or lower Digimon card from our trash to our hand. So if it's sort of the mid to late game and we have a bunch of MyotisMon in, you know, way more than the 5 that we need to activate MaloMyotismon's ability, we can theoretically play the Witchmon. Hopefully it comes out security so we don't have to pay that memory cost, but then fetch one of our MyotisMons so that we can get some more of its recurring abilities. Now you're probably wondering, what kind of recurring abilities am I talking about? Glad you asked, audience. Moving on. Ultimate MyotisMon. Wild. Now this is the new one from BT8 that says when Digivolving, trash the top 2 from our deck, then you can play 1 Yukio from trash without paying the memory cost. So like I said, this fits in more with that mid-range for the match, when you might have already done a Yukio play, and this will essentially allow you to play from trash for free, allowing you to recur some of those Yukios. And then it's inheritable, even better, on deletion. If the Digimon has MyotisMon in its name, you can play 1 Yukio from hand or trash without paying memory cost. Like I said, Yukio is an incredibly important part of this strategy, and with, you know, things like Black or Greymon or Mastamon, there is a bit of tamer hate out there, and they could be targeting Yukio as soon as they know that you're playing a MaloMyotismon deck. So being able to recur him from trash is absolutely essential. So this MyotisMon probably takes priority when it comes to any searching abilities and recursion. But that's not the only MyotisMon we play. Rounding out our ultimates, we do have 4 copies of EX1 MyotisMon. So on your turn, when this Digivolves into something with MyotisMon in its name, aka all of our Megas, we can reduce the memory cost by 1. So that makes both of our Megas 3 costs to Digivolve. Then on your turn, when this Digimon has MyotisMon in its name, All of your Digimon with a retaliation can also attack your opponent's unsuspended level 4 or lower Digimon. But yeah, 4 copies of EX1 Myotismon. Now, moving on into our megas, we do have 4 copies of the key monster, the boss monster itself, MaloMyotismon. So, it is a 13 to play, 4 to Digivolve, 12,000 DP. On play, if there are 5 or more Digimon with Myotismon in their names in your trash, delete one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon and trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. So, it is melting one security while also acting as a trump sword in a lot of scenarios. And then when Digivolving, we can trash the top 5 of our deck. Then if there's a card with Myotismon in its name in your trash, gain 1 memory. So inherently, even without the EX1 Myotismon here, this could potentially be a 3 to Digivolve MaloMyotismon, as long as you have Myotismon in trash. Then in combination with the EX1 Myotismon, it goes down to 2, which is pretty wild. And you're really only looking to Digivolve into MaloMyotismon when it's still sort of the very early parts of the match. Otherwise, any later than that, you're probably looking to find ways to cheat MaloMyotismon out from the trash onto the field, because obviously its on play is much better. And then rounding out our megas, we do have 3 copies of Venom Myotismon. So this one has retaliation. Then when attacking once per turn, we can play a level 4 or lower Digimon card with retaliation from the trash without paying the memory cost. There's no on-play effects to happen, but we don't really have any on-play level 4 or lower Digimon. And like I said, this is really good for, bringing back our, Devimon, potentially to attack in the next turn, because we don't have Rush. We're not running the Wizardmon, although it could be interesting here. Replace some Witchmon with Wizardmon might be an interesting strategy. But the main thing I'd like to see here is actually bring back the Devimon, because it's a level 4. We can then Digivolve into Myotismon, ideally the BT8 Myotismon. That way we can trigger its when Digivolving ability. And if this is over to EX1 Myotismon, that means this thing can also swing into some problematic, level 3s, like memory blockers, if your opponent's playing hybrids, Bokomon. So overall, I think that this is a very solid secondary mega. In the Oops All Malo deck that I'm going to make later on, MaloMyotismon, the other one, the BT3 one, is a secondary, but I kind of like the recursion of retaliation a little bit better. Alright, so that's it for the Digimon. Moving on to our options, do have 2 copies of Pandemonium Flame. So main ability is we can delete one of our own Digimon to delete one of our opponent's unsuspended Digimon that has the same level or less than the one that we chose to delete on our side. So this has the potential to be a 2-cost trump sword, essentially. Yes, we have to delete one of our own things, but if it is something with Myotismon, say even a MaloMyotismon, we can delete the MaloMyotismon with Pandemonium Flame and then trigger Yukio's All Turns ability, which I'll talk about in a bit. And then once it gets back to your turn, you'll be able to play the MaloMyotismon. So honestly, doing all of that setup for 2 cost, it's pretty nice. And then its security effect is essentially just trump sword. Delete one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon. And then rounding out the options, we do have 1 copy of Mist Memory Boost. So trash the top 2 of your deck and then draw 1. Then place in the battle area, and then it also has delay. So we can sacrifice it on our subsequent turns to gain 2 memory. And obviously you can see that this kind of fits in with the overall strategy we have of building up our trash by trashing top 2. Also gives us a little bit of draw, and the extra memory is always a good thing to have. Moving on to our options, got 2 copies of Matt Ishida. So this is a memory tamer, so if our memory is less than 2, it'll bring us to 3. And then on play, return 1 purple Digimon card or purple option card from trash to our hand. I think the key targets we'd like to see, if we have enough Myotismon in our trash, probably the BT8 Myotismon or Pandemonium Flame if we are pretty well set up. Unfortunately, we aren't able to grab back a Yukio, but that's okay, we got other ways to do it. And then next up, the man of the hour, we got Yukio Oikawa. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. But on all turns, when one of our Digimon with Myotismon in its name is deleted, we can suspend this tamer to gain 1 memory, which is awesome. But even better, end of opponent's turn ability. If this tamer is suspended, you may delete this tamer to play one MaloMyotismon from your trash without paying the memory cost. And as we discussed, the MaloMyotismon has some pretty wild on-play abilities. And based on what we have here, there's a possibility that you can have multiple Yukios out, meaning that multiple MaloMyotismons come out onto the field. If you can make it to the mid-game of this deck, you have a really good shot at winning just because of all the burst damage you can do with all these MaloMyotismons coming out onto the field. Because remember, it's on play. Yes, it deletes an unsuspended Digimon, but it might not always do that just because your opponent might not have an unsuspended Digimon, but it will always trash one of the security cards. So yeah, Yukio, very, very, very vital to this deck, which also means if you're playing against a MaloMyotismon, this is probably your #1 target to destroy. And then rounding out the tamers and our deck profile, we do have 2 copies of Analog Youth. So it's a 2 cost to play white tamer, on play, reveal top 3, and then add a Digimon card to the hand, and then actually trash the rest of them, once again fitting in with our strategy. And then on all turns, when one of your level 5 or higher Digimon with Digivolution cards is deleted, you can suspend this tamer, and if you do, gain 1 memory, then hatch a Digi-Egg card into an empty spot in your raising area. So key thing to note here is that the level 5 does have to have Digivolution cards, which upon my first time reading it, I kind of missed that. So the on-play MaloMyotismons, if they got deleted, would not affect anything, but most likely you're going to have Digivolution cards under your Venom Myotismon, or even before that, your other Myotismons probably have some sources on them if you're building it up correctly. And so when those are deleted, you can activate Yukio and Analog Youth at the same time. And yeah, that is the deck profile. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think that this is a pretty solid one? Do you think that you'll have enough time in meta matchups with, Imperial Dramon or with Tamer Hate like Mastamon? Do you think you'll have enough time to set up the Malo? Let me know what you think. Also, while you're down there, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. I am super excited about BT8. I know there weren't any dual colors in this one, but dual colors sort of has been my thing, so I'm very excited to have those introduced into the game. And overall, I think there's just some really fun strategies that are coming out there. For example, the Shivamon deck that we made last week has an interesting win con. I do want to check out Creepymon just because that has some interesting win cons. Overall, it's kind of a very exciting time to be part of the Digimon community. And thank you all again for being a part of mine. Hitting over 600 subs and counting is an incredible goal. And hopefully I can continue to make great content for you, whether it's in the realm of Digimon or maybe even some One Piece stuff as that comes out in Japan. But anyway, I think that'll do it for me. So thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And Tamers, remember, build what you like, play what you love, and I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good one.